Started. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. My name is Tammy Cruz, and I work with the state support team in Region 1. I am joined by three of my colleagues from our office, Nicole Herbert, Ralph Shady, and Cindy Scaff. Thank you guys for being here as well. We're going to do our second meeting of our attendance, A is for Attendance series. And if you were here with us last time, we talked about kind of creating a system of attendance supports for students to make sure that everyone is in school as much as possible. We talked about the fact that chronic absenteeism definition is 10% or more of the days of school have been missed, and that is for any reason. Excused, unexcused, suspensions, expulsions, any reason at all. And at this time of the year, we can start accumulating those absences. So it's a really good time to start looking at data and saying which kids are at risk for becoming chronically absent, or which kids are already chronically absent. So by the end of this series, I'm going to ask that you please turn in an action plan of what you plan to do with this information. We don't want this to go into a binder or into a folder on your computer, and then we never look at it again. We have to implement the strategies that we say we would like to implement in order to affect and have a positive effect on student attendance. So I will ask for that action plan at the end of the series, and we will be working on it as we go along. So let me share my screen. All right, everybody can see a PowerPoint right now. Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right, so we're on session 2. We're going to talk about Tier 1 strategies to improve attendance. And if we think Tier 1, we are talking about just general overall building conditions. We're going to talk about universal and Tier 1. So overall general building conditions to help to make sure that our buildings are happy places to be and that kids are encouraged to come to school because they are happy places to be. All right, am I new? This happened last time, sorry. Yeah. There we go. All right, so as I said, my name is Tammy Cruz. Please make sure, so that you can have credit for being here, that your name, organization, and position are in the chat. And that's the way we take attendance. So please make sure you've got everybody. If you're in a room with more than one person, please put everybody's information into the chat. We also have a Padlet of resources, and they can be found here at this QR code. And then Nicole is also going to put in the chat a link that you can access the PowerPoints for these. I have the recording on there from the first session. So if you were not able to join us for the first session, the recording is there. And you can access it and catch up on that information, along with all of the handouts and links to resources that we have available. If you have issues with getting into the Padlet, please let me know. So over the course of these 4 meetings, the series intentions are to learn how to use actionable data to address attendance concerns. We want to talk about data-driven systemic approach to addressing these attendance concerns. We don't want to just play whack-a-mole with kid by kid by kid by kid. We want to make sure that we have a system in place to help us catch kids before we get too far down the road. And then we want to choose effective strategies in a multi-tiered system of support. And as we talk about universal Tier 1 strategies today, we will be starting to talk about the triangle, because we can't have an educational conversation without a triangle, apparently. So we are here on session 2. So our objective for today is to explore and apply universal and Tier 1 attendance interventions. Okay, so this PowerPoint has lots and lots of ideas. Please do not feel like you have to go out tomorrow and try all of them, okay? One of the things with your action plan is I want you to make sure that you're looking at what will work best for your building. And one of the things we'll talk about is what are quick wins. They're easy to implement and at the same time, highly effective. So you'll talk with your attendance team about what that looks like and sounds like for your building. Okay, as I mentioned last time, we talked about an action plan. There is a template for that action plan on the Padlet. If you haven't had a chance to get started on it, don't panic, it's okay. But I do want to give you some time to share ideas with other people and other schools. Okay, so this time we're going to have some random breakout rooms so that you are talking to people from across the region and talk about some of these questions here. Okay, so in your building, do you have an attendance team, or is this attendance work going to fall within another team, a PBIS team, or a culture climate team, or whatever you call it, or the BLT team in your building? What data do you have available to collect and then disaggregate to look at attendance for your students? Okay, do you have a system to collect that? If you don't yet, that's okay, but that would be a step on your action plan to work on developing that. Based on your data, any data that you have, the quantitative and also the qualitative, because remember last time we talked about different ways to collect the data. We can look at basically who's missing school, but then we talked about things like an empathy interview. Have we sat down and talked with students about what's going on? You know, what's happening? We miss you at school. What's going on? We talked about that 2x10 strategy and trying to connect with kiddos. We talked about qualitative, like taking a survey of students. Why are they missing school? Because we want to get to the root cause of what's happening. You're like, what is the main reason that kiddos are not coming to school in general across your building? And then it'll get more specific as we work with groups of students and individual students. And then what tools do you need to get or can be used to help collect some of this data? And then what system of support can be created or enhanced, the things that you're already doing, to determine those root causes for individual students' chronic absenteeism, right? So we aren't going to have time to answer all of these questions. These are just meant as jumping off points for you and you and the people in your breakout room to start discussing. I will copy them and put them into the chat so that you have them as well. Any questions? So in your breakout room, I would like you to each pick maybe one of these questions and answer it and talk about it. Maybe we're just starting with a team. That's okay. What does that look like in each of your buildings? Have that conversation, share ideas, network with each other. We're going to take about 10 minutes to do this, which I am going to admit it's not enough time. Absolutely not enough time, but we're just going to get the conversation started and give you maybe a jump start or some ideas to add to your action plan. My SST colleagues, if you can jump into breakout rooms and just help facilitate that conversation as needed, that would be fabulous. All right, any questions about the directions? Everybody's good? All right, I am going to, let's see. Let me adjust some breakout rooms here so that we don't have one person in each room.
Amy, are the questions in the Padlet or so that we can refer to them
I
again?
am going to copy them and put them in the chat right now.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so now they are in the chat. I am going to send you, you're gonna have 4 or 5 people in each room. I'm gonna send you off into breakout rooms. If you need me, come on back into the main room. Okay, you're off.
Amy, I did not have access to those questions to put in there. I couldn't grab them out of the PowerPoint. Okay, I just want to make sure I wasn't missing something. Okay.
Nope, that was one of those, yeah, should put those in the chat, shouldn't we?
That's okay. You grabbed them, so.
I love the first time through. Okay, Paul and Constantine, you guys have to step away, I'm assuming. I had 8 rooms created, but I just switched it because we're down to like 2 or 3, except for room 1.
Yeah, I see that there's an SST person in each room.
Yeah, that's helpful. Yeah, room 1's a little heavy, but that's okay. I so appreciate your help. It is so much easier when I don't have to chat and oops, you're muted.
As long as I've got everything for you, that's all. I just want to make sure
Yeah.
I'm helpful.
No, and again, first time through it, everything, you're like, oh yeah.
Yep.
Let me look. And I do questions for the end breakout room too. Oh, I suppose I should set a timer. And we're still. All right, welcome back, everyone. Could you either unmute or put in the chat any insights you had from your breakout room or next steps that you want to take with a team or creating a team? So either unmute or put in the chat, please.
Hey, Dennis, this is Ralph. Would you like to share what you're doing with the conference that you attended, the attendance conference?
Are you referring to the Stay in the Game program? Okay. Yep. So we're a new district to Stay in the Game, partnering with Cleveland Browns and the Battelle Institute. We provide them with some aggregate attendance data, some goal setting over the course of the summer. And then once the school year starts, the Browns send you a lot of incentive swag and some different incentives you can use for kids, targeting a different group of kids, maybe that wouldn't be motivated by traditional incentives at school for attending. They sent us a couple giant boxes of like gear, like book bags, folders, Bluetooth speakers, game tickets, and actually a couple autographed footballs too. So they let us decide how we want to disseminate that to our kids based on attendance data. So we've been tracking attendance and kind of making it a contest for our kids, and it's brought a lot of new energy to our school. And the kids are having fun with it. It'd be better if the Browns were playing a little better, but we're still having fun.
We can still root them on, right? And all of that is at no cost to the district, correct, Dennis?
That's correct. No cost. They just ask for some aggregate attendance data so that we can see if it's improving and helping our cause.
Awesome.
Be able to sign up for that, like even though school year already started?
So what actually they do is there's so much involved with it because you have to put together a team. And I guess we were kind of nervous because we kind of jumped on late. So at the end of last school year, we looked into it and they said, well, we'd like you to come on as an observing district the first year. They want you to just observe and see how the program works so you can kind of get a feel for it. My director of innovation, our assistant superintendent, he kind of pushed a little bit and they let us actually come in. So we're doing it, full on this year. So we are able to get some of the incentives and things like that. And the stuff's been really fun and great, like a lot of t-shirts and things like that. Like I said, it's brought a lot of energy and, the kids are taking they take a pledge at the beginning of September because that's, it's Attendance Awareness Month. And so far we're seeing some good results.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. So Melissa, maybe you could join this year for the observation year, if it's not too late, and then be ready to go next year.
Yeah, I'm gonna look into it.
Same.
All right, and Nate, you said you talked about finding the root cause. Yeah, we want to ask those 5 whys. Why are students missing school? So they don't want to come. Why don't they want to come? And keep asking those questions to try to get down to what is the main root cause. Thank you for sharing that in the chat. Anybody else want to have anything to share?
The only thing that we have been, we started it last year and continuing it this year that the kids seem to be responding to a little bit is like a weekly contest. So we kind of tie it into our PBIS system and our like Wizard dollars that they can spend in the school store. And there are hot winners for the week, so Kieran on time. So during, on Wednesday, we send the midweek report with what grade has the highest attendance percentage. And then we pull it again on the following Monday after the full week, and that class gets a larger amount of like a wizard dollar that they can go spend in the store or save for something. And that has seemed to respond well with the kids. And then we put it on our news announcements, you know, congratulations to this grade. They were the hot winners for last week. So it's just something easy and it's sustainable, at least, because we just pull a report and then it's just factored into our token economy system already. So it's already something that we, you know, do. So I think that's the thing too. Sustainability was something that's such a beast, like attendance.
We
Yeah,
do
thank.
pretty much the same thing, but with, we have school uniforms. So the winning class earns, or grade level earns a dress down pass. So pretty much the same thing.
Love it. I love how, Allison, I love how you guys are combining that with your PBIS framework so that way it's not one additional thing. It's already part of what you are doing. And so hot is here and on time.
Yes.
Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. And then Melissa, yeah, having that dress down pass, I would imagine, is incredibly motivating. So it's by grade level, not just by individual students, correct?
For the dress down pass, yes, it's grade level.
Okay, and then Allison, Melissa and Allison, are you in the same place or
No,
no? Okay. Allison, are you grade level as well?
Yeah, we do it as grade level because that's just how the report pulls.
Mhm.
So we're kind of hoping, you know, maybe they're encouraging each other to come. I don't know. So
Yeah, a
Well,
little positive peer pressure.
we
Yeah.
want to like encourage them to be here, but we don't want to like create a situation like it's like ableist. Like we understand that there are kiddos who won't be able to be here. Like we get that. And those aren't obviously the kiddos we're targeting, but it's so hard because people go back and forth now about like perfect attendance awards and are they okay and what's the situation.
Mhm.
So it's trying to stay current and find something that works. But we, you know, the just negative stuff wasn't working. We needed something positive. So it's just
Absolutely. Because as we know, if you want to change somebody's behavior, you need to point out what they're doing right. So, and I like the fact that it's not everybody being perfect, having perfect attendance, because we do get sick, or, you know, things do happen where we do need to miss a day as adults as well. And so, but having the goal be overall improved attendance or the highest attendance for the grade level, I love that. All right. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for joining those breakout rooms. So one of our goals is going to be to identify what layer of support, what system of support we need to have kids in based on why they're absent and then also how often they are absent. So we're going to create a multi-tiered system of interventions. Now, multi-tiered systems of support, you're used to hearing this when it comes to academics because we talk about the universal great teaching strategies, the universal PBIS framework that you have in place for all students. And then tier 2 are those small groups of students that we take students who have similar issues and put them into small groups for interventions. And then tier 3, those are students who need those intensive interventions, more one-on-one support in order to be successful. So it's the same idea that we were talking about, whether it's academics or behavior or attendance. The tiers are very similar. However, Attendance Works has added an additional layer to this, and these are foundational supports, okay? These are just basic ideas that in a school we need to have in order to encourage students to be in school, okay? So I've combined foundational supports and tier 1 supports, universal prevention, into this presentation today because they're similar, but a little bit different, okay? When we're talking about kiddos falling into these different tiers, tier 1 is universal prevention for all students and families. These are the targeted, so 10 to 19% missing days. Number of days missed is 10 to 19%, versus tier 3 is intensive intervention for any student who's missing 20% or more of school on a regular basis. Okay, you'll notice that the universal and the foundational are both for all students and all families, right? I know we have a couple of community schools on here. And then also we have adults that are responsible for bringing students to school, all right? Especially when we're talking about elementary students. Yes, sometimes elementary students don't get out of bed, don't get moving, don't want to come to school, etc. Yes, that happens. But sometimes this is more of an adult parent problem. Not problem, but challenge, because they are responsible for driving their students to school. And so we need to make sure that we have some of these interventions and this information for both the kids and their families, so that families do understand that missing 1 or 2 days a month, that's an issue. That adds up quickly to a lot of lost instructional time. Okay, so again, just another way to break down the numbers. Satisfactory attendance is attending 95% or more days during the school year. You're considered at risk 90 to 95% attendance, right? So that's really not missing very many days. Moderate chronic absence is less than or equal to 90%, but more than 80. So between 80 and 90%, basically. And then severe chronic absence is attending 80% or less of the time. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? Any questions about that? All right. So we need to start looking at this data yesterday, okay, right now, because in the first 2 weeks, if a student misses 2 days of school, we're already at risk, okay, of chronic absenteeism. In the first month, 2 to 3 absences puts them at risk for chronic absenteeism. And then those first 2 months or any time afterward that they're missing 10% of the days, 4 to 7 absences in the first 8 weeks, or again, 10% or more of the days after, anytime after those first 2 months, puts a student at risk for chronic absenteeism. So my guess is you could go into your attendance data right now, assuming you have a way to pull that, which I'm assuming you do with your basic Power School or whatever that is, and look and say, how many days have these students missed? And is it setting them up to be at risk to be chronically absent? We can have awesome teaching strategies. We can have awesome PBIS frameworks, but if the kids aren't in school to take advantage of those things, we're not going to improve test scores. We're not going to improve graduation rates. We're not going to be able to help them prepare for success beyond school if they're not in school. All right, so let's talk about the data, qualitative and quantitative data. We talked about it a little bit last time. In order to have change, one of the first things that has to change for some people is a mindset. All right, well, if those parents would just, well, a couple days here or there, that's not a big deal. Well, they're in kindergarten. What really are they learning in kindergarten? I'll admit, I mean, I used to take our girls out to go see their grandparents in Florida once a year and take them out for a week in kindergarten in those lower grades going, yeah, they'll be okay. They're learning a lot of other experiences. Now, we didn't allow that to continue as they got older, but I was a parent that had the attitude, yeah, a few days missed here and there. That's not too big of a deal. I was shocked when I first started learning what chronic absenteeism really is. Like, it's not very many days missed. Okay, so we need to have the right mindset. And then we need to have data that's at our fingertips that we can analyze and act upon. We have to build capacity with our staff. How are we going to tackle this problem? Yes, I want you to have an attendance team or incorporate this into an existing team. However, this is an everybody problem. How can you help support your teachers to say, okay, could you have these students in your homeroom when they are missing school, could you call home, please? Just, hey, we miss you. Could you send a text, please? Could you send a remind text so your phone number isn't going out over the wires and all students have access to that? Send a message. Connect with the student. Hey, we miss you. We're looking forward to seeing you. What's going on? Those kinds of things. And then we need some strategies, which the rest of this series will be based on. We'll talk about lots of different strategies and you'll choose what you want to use in your building. And hopefully the outcomes will be that we'll have increased attendance for all students. On the Padlet, this is in the first column. A lot of these strategies came from the attendance playbook and then the attendance work implementation guide. So obviously we want to give credit where credit is due. Also, I had the slide at the beginning. I might have zoomed through it too quickly. The regional data leads and Region 9 shared large chunks of this PowerPoint with me, and I am forever grateful because it's always easier to modify an existing resource than reinvent the wheel. So thank you to them. All right, so as I mentioned before, one of the things we want to work smarter, not harder. So when we're talking about these strategies, and the answer to this question could be different in different buildings, okay? But which strategies are going to fall in this area of our priority matrix? They're going to have high impact and be low effort, okay, to get started. So for some schools, certain strategies will fall here and they won't be the same strategies as for another school. That's okay. But for you, for your building, what are some quick wins that you say, oh, we are already doing this, you know, we are already acknowledging kids with wizard dollars anyway, so we could acknowledge students who are hot, or grade levels who are hot by giving more wizard dollars. That would be a low effort, high impact strategy for Horizon Science Springfield. Okay, we don't want to do low effort and low impact. Okay, we don't have time to do things that don't work, or high effort and low impact is even worse. Sometimes we have high impact, but it's a high effort strategy. Let's start here just to make things a little easier and help build the capacity of everyone. Okay, so this comes from Ohio's Attendance Guide, just talking about foundational supports which promote positive conditions for learning. All right. I often tell people in training, I can walk into a school building after all the buildings that I have visited over my educational career. Each building has a climate, has a feeling when you walk in. That's incredibly qualitative data. I totally admit that. But at the same time, within a half hour to 45 minutes, I can tell you how the building feels. I can tell you that climate. Are adults speaking respectfully to kids? Are adults speaking respectfully to each other? Okay. Is there a lot of shouting and yelling going on? Or is there some just basic happy learning noise? I don't expect schools to be silent. Okay. You got too many kids in there. But there's a difference between happy learning noise happening and chaos happening. Now, if your climate is a certain way at one point in time, can it change? Absolutely. Absolutely. And we have at least one school on here, no, two schools on here that I know for sure their climate has changed over time and become much more positive. And I congratulate them for all their hard work to make that happen. Right. So these foundational supports are what help make up that climate and the culture of your building. So what are some things that we can do? We want to make sure that your building feels safe, both emotionally and physically. All right. If kids are walking in and it does not feel safe and dangerous things are happening, that doesn't encourage people to come to school. So we want to make sure to keep that to a minimum. We want to make sure we have a climate that's conducive to learning. That encompasses so many different things. All right. That encompasses how excited educators are to be there. That encompasses how well educators feel that they are treated by administration. Is the administrator an instructional leader and they're in the trenches with the educators and helping to promote those positive strategies to help educators be more successful? Is discipline under control enough that students are able to learn? We're always going to have some kind of discipline issues, but is a PBIS framework in place firmly enough that there are more positives than negatives happening, more positive affirmations happening versus negative getting after kids? Is there a sense of belonging to the school? Are kids proud to be there? Are they happy to be there? Do they feel like they belong as part of your school community? I used to talk about creating a classroom family in my classroom. I taught self-contained and a resource room for special ed years ago when those were a lot more prevalent. And we were a classroom family. We didn't have to like each other all the time, but we needed to be respectful of one another and create a safe space for everyone in our class, which meant we weren't bullying each other. We weren't making fun of each other. Mistakes were okay. And we were supporting each other in learning. Did that work every single day? Nope. I taught middle school special ed. It didn't work every single day, but that was the goal of each day, that you are in a safe space when you walk into this room. And we'd like that to be when you walk into this school, you are in a safe space. All right. Academic challenge and engagement. I heard from one district that there was a young person that wasn't coming to school, but was passing all of their classes. Okay, kudos to that student for being really on top of things, but why? Where was the challenge for that student? If the student did not feel challenged enough, if the student could get an A or a B in all the classes without ever showing up to class, I might argue that the rigor needs to be pushed up a little bit for that student so that they do feel challenged and do feel like there is a purpose for coming to school. All right, and students are engaged in learning. How are we making learning relevant to students? Why are we learning this? When are we ever going to use this? We need to have an answer for that question for the majority of our lessons that we teach. Okay, and that can be done in lots of different ways. I'm really excited about the idea for late middle school and high schools, incorporating industry recognized credentials within some of the core content area, because then you can say, this does relate to real life, okay? Lisa Height is our, I'm not trying to throw her under the bus. I know she's at a conference all week, but she is our expert in industry recognized credentials and graduation requirements in our office. And then finally, we want to make sure that people are able to navigate emotionally, socially throughout the building. Right? If kids are being bullied all the time, they aren't going to want to come to school. If educators are unhappy to be there all the time, they're not going to want to come to work, and hence the kids are not going to want to come to school. All right. We want to make sure we're building those relationships with kids. We want to notice when students aren't coming. We want to have enough of a cue in a bead on each kid to know, hey, wait a minute, something's off. Something's up with this kiddo. Okay. High levels of chronic absenteeism are an indication that these positive conditions are either weren't established or they've deteriorated. Okay, so this could be us if you have overarchingly, you have high levels of absenteeism. These might be some questions to start asking. Okay, because this would be foundational. We've got to build that foundation and then build upon it. Any questions about those strategies or those ideas? I don't have my chat up, Nicole, so you'll let me know what's in the chat.
So far, so good.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're good. Okay, next we'll move up to tier 1. So again, when we're talking about academics, these are the awesome evidence-based strategies that you're using in lessons to teach all of your students. We're talking about PBIS, we're talking about your foundational, having your expectations up, teaching those expectations, acknowledging expectations, having a continuum of consequences, collecting the data and trying to prevent misbehavior. So this is just the things we do for everybody to help improve success. Okay. And I think I just said all that. All right. So one of the main things is to communicate attendance policies and expectations to the students, and then also to families. All right. For a lot of families, again, this whole missing 2 days a month idea is new. It was new to me, because that doesn't feel like very much time. All right. Oh, you know, it's that time of the month, or, oh, I'm just having a bad day. And, oh, you know, how many times are kids missing because of that? So stay in the game, as was it Dennis mentioned? And then Attendance Works has several handouts, and I'm going to show you some of those in just a minute. Ever since I heard this idea of families not being aware of how much time their students are missing, this video came to mind. I'm going to show my age just a little bit for those of you who are closer to my age than not, maybe even a few of the younger people. You can hear it? No. All right. 1 second. They moved the share sound. All right, let's try again.
Usually is. So far this semester, he has been absent 9 times.
9 times?
9 times.
I don't remember him being sick 9 times.
That's probably because he wasn't sick. He was skipping school. Wake up and smell the coffee, Mrs. Bueller. It's a fool's paradise. He is just leading you down the primrose path.
I can't believe it.
I've got it right here in front of me. He has missed 9 days.
I asked for a car, I got a computer. How's that for being born under a bad sign?
Grace!
All right. Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Lots of fun. All right. If you haven't seen the movie, please take a moment to watch it. And yes, computer screens did used to look like that. The one color was green, and that was all. All right, so while we're here in Google, the next slide that we'll talk about talks about the Pitt Statewide Family Engagement Center has done a lot of work around working with families on attendance. One of the options that they have is here, family engagement letters that talk about why attendance is so important. One thing that I really like about these letters, they're simple, they're easy to read, and they also come in various languages. All right, when I go back, you can choose Ukrainian, you can choose English, you can choose Spanish, there are lots of different options to choose simply by pressing a button, and then you can print them out and send them home, or attach them and email them home, or give them a hard copy to parents when they come into your building. So lots of different options there. You can see my PowerPoint again. Yeah, thank you. All right, so Arabic, Chinese, Dari, English, French, Haitian Creole, Nepali, Russian, Somali, Spanish, Swahili, and Ukrainian. All right, so not every language. I know a few English learners that speak different languages than these listed, but they're working on it. Okay, their goal is to translate it into as many different languages as possible. So that is another resource that you can access. All right, so these tier 1 strategies, broken them down into some various categories. So providing for basic needs. Sometimes kids don't come to school because they don't have clean clothes. Sometimes they don't come to school because they have to wear a uniform, but their uniform, I've heard a story of a young man walking to school in cold weather in a soaking wet white button-down shirt because the shirt got washed the night before but didn't make it to the dryer. But he wanted to come to school, and he came to school braving the possibility of catching pneumonia. Okay, science teachers, I know, cold does whatever, but Jacob's glaring at me. But it can't be good for their health to walk to school in a soaking wet shirt. So we want to make sure our school buildings themselves are healthy. I know if you have ever been in our building, and I warned you not to drink the water that comes out of the pipes in our building because it comes out in various shades of orange, depending on which day of the week we're talking about. My coworkers can attest. All right. Monday is not a good day. Do not even think about yeah, it's just gross. But we want to make sure our school buildings themselves are not adding to sickness. The way our building has dealt with that is we have water coolers available, Culligan coolers, so that we can get fresh water and not have our insides turn to rust. School-based health services. I know that Whitmer High School has a health clinic now that is part of their high school so that students can get medical treatment at school through the health clinic. Okay. Telehealth services. One of the things that Attendance Works talks about is offering the option of telehealth over the computer via Zoom like this, so that, you know, is it the sniffles? Is it allergies? Is it COVID? Is it the flu? That's always the question, right? How sick am I? How sick am I really? So having those options available. Free meals for all, making sure that all kids have the option of breakfast and lunch at school. That way that takes away the stigma of, oh, you get free and reduced lunch in certain places. And we make sure that all kids are eating. If they are hungry, they're not learning anything. Again, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. They have to feel safe, they have to be fed, they have to be rested. Otherwise, they're not going to be ready to learn. A safer walk to school. Sometimes some of our buildings are in areas where kids may not feel safe to walk to school. I know I worked in one downtown building where the administrative staff, all of their kids walked to the building because it was a neighborhood school. So the administrative staff walked with the students in the morning, walking in and walking out, kind of met them at the edge of the neighborhood and helped to make sure that they were getting to school safely, and there was more adult school presence in that area. Sometimes if you have a resource officer, can they be outside to make sure that kids are being safe on the way in and out of school? Laundry at school, as we talked about, I have a couple of buildings that have washers and dryers at school. So if a kiddo comes in and is not clean, worried about being the smelly kid, we have some options of clothing that they can change into, and then also wash their clothes while they're here. Okay, same with uniforms. If you require uniforms at your building, do you have extra uniform pieces for students to put on? And then they leave them at school. They change back into their street clothes before they leave the building, so you don't keep losing your uniform pieces. And then you have the washer dryer there to throw them in so that they're ready and clean for the next student who comes along. Okay, what is more important? Is it more important that they are complying and dressing in the uniform? Or is it more important that if they come in out of uniform, we have something available for them to put on and then they can spend the rest of the day at school versus being sent home because they aren't wearing a uniform? It's just a question to ask, okay? Summer learning and after school strategies. Summer learning is great, but what's the transportation like? After school stuff is great, but what's the transportation like? Are you offering a late bus? Having after school clubs, having clubs in general. I know at one point, maybe Horizon Science Springfield, maybe you're still doing this. The clubs were offered like one Friday a month or a couple Fridays a month at school for the last half an hour. So they still had the club experience, but they didn't have to deal with the transportation of getting home after the clubs, okay? Some of our bigger schools, that would be difficult to do. But what other ways can you help remove barriers to help students be able to participate in tutoring or summer school or after school meetings? And then food pantries and weekend meals. This, you could argue, might be a tier 2, tier 1 strategy. It depends how many of your students need these things. But I know that there are backpacks that a lot of schools put together with some instant meals, because when some of our students leave our building on Friday afternoon, they are not guaranteed how many meals they're going to get between lunch on Friday and breakfast on Monday when they come back. And so how are we supporting them nutritionally to get home? And there are organizations you can partner with to help with those things. All right, another set of strategies, again, connecting with those with you as the caring adults. All right, these are very simple, positive greetings at the door. You know, if you've been in my trainings before, I show the Relationships Matter video. The little guy coming into the building and the bus driver is grumpy and the lunch person is grumpy, and we want to make it a welcoming place. The people who work in your front office, are they friendly or are they scary? I see a lot of front office people when I go to schools. Are they friendly or are they not necessarily as kind and welcoming as you would like them to be? All right. When kids come in late, are we yelling at them for coming in late, or are we glad that they are there? All right. If I'm going to come in late and I'm going to get yelled at, it might be easier to stay home. Okay. That doesn't mean that we don't have that conversation later about why are we late, but we want to have those first steps into the door positive. Angie says, welcoming, especially after students have been absent. We're so glad you're here, as opposed to why were you absent? Yeah, we're so glad you're back. We missed you. We're glad that you're joined us today. Implementing a PBIS framework, okay? Not to advertise my area that I usually work in, but there's a reason why we implement a PBIS framework. It helps to create a more welcoming school environment. Restorative discipline practices. How are we restoring those relationships between students and adults, or between students when they have made a mistake and had a problem? What strategies are we using to restore those relationships and start fresh again? All right. 2x10 strategy. As I mentioned, we talked about this the first time. Some of your tougher kids, take 2 minutes every day for 10 consecutive days and make an effort to talk to them, not about academics, about anything else. And we said those first couple of days might be a little awkward because you're going to be doing a lot of the talking, but hopefully by day 10, it'll start to show some cracks in the armor there, and you'll help to build that relationship with the kiddo. And then there's a strategy of relationship mapping. I've mentioned which students do you have a relationship with? This one is just a little bit different, and I liked it. And there was a video that went with it. Okay, first, before I start, any questions, comments? Thanks, Angie, for putting in the chat. Thanks, Nicole. There are handouts at that link, but again, everything's on the Padlet. Any questions? Are we good? Okay. All right.
Through the door wanting to feel
Here?
valued. Every child deserves to
Does
have
everybody
at
hear
least
it?
one adult in this building who knows them by name. We want 100% of our students to feel connected to a teacher in our building, and that's our goal. It was just a matter of how do we measure this? Early in the year, we conduct a teacher-student connection poster activity so that we can determine which students we've connected with and which students we need to work toward connecting with.
Delaney is allergic to red food dye.
Yeah.
And she also has a pond that she swims in.
We take their whole roster of students, we put it up on a wall, and we ask teachers to go through by name and face. Yep, I know this one, this one, this one.
All by name and face, man. I think that was a team goal by the end of the second week.
What?
Yeah.
And a week 2.
The activity was based around how well do you know your students. Just through this simple, adding a check mark next to the kid's name that you know by name and face, and then the other categories, academic status, and then a more in-depth personal story about them.
She's one that slips under the radar, though. She's pretty quiet.
You look at a lot of kids and you go, hey, this student has 1 check mark. I know them by name and face, but other than that, I don't know where they're at academically. I don't know anything about their personal life. It's probably harder for them to feel valued in a learning environment without that connection to the teacher. So to me, that's what this was all about, a reflective process. How well are we getting to know our kids?
And so you don't get to know those students.
The stones in the river, that's what I like to call them. They're just letting the water wash over them. We gotta go pick up that stone and turn it over.
We want them to reflect, and then it's time to develop an action plan. What are we going to do to make sure that these students are taken care of?
We have personal conversations with our students in the hallways during passing time. We also do things like thumbs up Thursdays or feel good Fridays, and we just take a few seconds to have kids share things that they're proud of.
To get to know the kids a little bit better on a personal level, just asking them a simple question as they come in the door. Example, last week I started off by just asking kids what their favorite food or fruit was. And then those questions can get deeper to try and get, a little more personal with them.
Winter. What is it? Summer? Nice.
The students here should be seen as people and not just pupils. The more valued they are for their individuality, the more successful they're going to be in the classroom, the more risks they're going to be willing to take, and that's awesome.
We have seen a huge increase in our students' connection to school, with their connection to the teachers, and I think that's probably the most joy teachers have in their profession. Then the real work can begin.
Okay. So I really like that because it was just, I feel like this would be the precursor to which students would say that they have a relationship with you. Okay, so do you know their names and faces? Do you know anything about them? Do you know anything about their home life? I feel like that would be a good precursor to the other activities. So really like that one. All right. All right, so that was is the relationship mapping, okay? And again, people need to feel seen and heard and known in an environment in order to feel safe. Okay, other strategies, personalized outreach and communication to families and students. All right, phone calls, text messages. Look at, and this again, we're not gonna get too hung up on which tier the strategy is in, okay? But those form letters that go out saying your child has been absent this many times, be careful of those, okay? Be really careful of those. I mean, somebody in our office shared that her son had been in the hospital and she gets a truancy letter. Like, that's not really what she needed at that moment. She knew he was out of school and the school knew he was out of school, but that truancy letter got automatically sent and didn't help build a relationship in any way, shape, or form. Okay. Sierra, I love the fact that you were out and greeting a student who was chronically absent and making sure they had a good transition back into the building. Great job. All right. We want to recognize improved and good attendance, not necessarily just perfect attendance. Okay, because if I miss one day, well, I'm out of it. I am out of it. Melissa says, Chat GPT asked to write a note to parent about attendance in a friendly but informative tone. It's the best. Awesome, awesome. Also on the Statewide Family Engagement Center, they have examples of parent-friendly or family-friendly letters and absence letters that can be sent home. So a couple different options. That letter is on the Padlet as well, okay? Especially when parents are responsible for getting their kiddos to school, can you provide incentives for families and students? Summit Academy, which is right down the road from our building, last year, any student that had a 92% attendance rate, okay? So that's still kind of in that at-risk-ish area, but 92% or better, both the family and the students were recognized at like a donuts and coffee, donuts and juice kind of event as families were dropping kids off. Okay, they don't have buses. The families have to bring them. And so while they're there anyway, dropping off kiddos, here we go. Thank you so much for getting your kiddos here and on time, 92% or more of the time. Okay, so it's not necessarily the perfect attendance, improved attendance for some of our frequent flyers that are often absent. Man, if they make it to school 4 or 5 days during the week, let's acknowledge that. Use your PBIS rewards to acknowledge that so that they can feel accomplished. That for some of our kids, it's a huge deal to make it to school that many days during a week. All right. Messaging about the benefits of attendance for the whole child. So I'm not going to go to, I'm running out of time already. But this website here, and Nicole will put it in the chat, it's also on the Padlet, has a whole like back to school night presentation that is already created. Okay. And it's based on showing up matters for real. REAL stands for building routines, increasing engagement, provide access to resources, and support learning. All right, so it literally, you could take this and do it just as it is, modifying, putting in your school name, or you could modify it and tailor it to your school, but it already talks about a lot of the really important things about going to school on a regular basis. Nicole, did I not have that one out? There it is. Okay, thank you. Thank you, thank you. All right, and then relevant and culturally relevant instruction. Again, we talked about when am I ever going to use this? All right. The other thing is your building friendly to all the people and cultures who are there? Okay. And this can start as simply as signage. If you have a variety of students from different ethnicities in your building, and when I look around at posters in your building, do I see all of those ethnicities represented in some way, shape, or form in a positive way? Okay, do I see literature used that has people of different cultures in the literature? Are we talking about people in history of different ethnicities who have made a contribution in history, and it's not Black History Month and it's not Hispanic Heritage Month? It's just part of our instruction, our good instruction, so that everybody feels like they belong there. Okay. Sometimes you're going to have to do a little extra legwork to make this happen. All right. There is a video that goes along with this. But again, I got 6 minutes left already. So a few more than that, but it's on the Padlet. Please feel free to watch it. It's just 3 or 4 minutes long. Oh, okay. I'm in better shape than I thought. All right. So we will watch the video. 1 second. Okay, here's the attendance letter, okay, from the statewide family engagement. It talks about different language that can be used that isn't quite so harsh. All right, and then this is about creating a sense of belonging in general, but there is a cultural piece as a part of it.
Anything else special happen this weekend, friends?
In the pool, I did a cannonball. I know how to swim.
You know how to swim?
I know how to blow bubbles underwater.
You
Me
do?
too.
As human beings, one of the most essential needs we have is the need to belong. In school, children need a sense of belonging to be able to be productive learners. They need to be connected to their fellow students, connected to their teachers, to also be affirmed in who they are in a way that is positive and accepting. In a belonging classroom, there's a community being explicitly built. The teacher knows each child and things about each of those children that they can mention and draw on.
I pay attention, I listen. I'm really invested in what they tell me. The students feeling loved, students feeling nurtured, students feeling like they have a place at school, they're safe. It activates their brain cells.
What side would you
Sense of belonging is one of the most important activators of a child's engagement in learning. Everything about activating a child's cognitive skills begins with activating their social connectedness. The energy for learning is coming from the social connection that children have.
But in the end, we're trying to come up with an agreement.
Excellent. We're not going to comment, question. We're only going to encourage. Because they're culturally and linguistically diverse students, I want to really make sure that we are making them feel connections. All the writing we do in our class, it's very much about them. It helps them, promotes them to find their own voice and to share their stories.
Sometimes people think every Muslim person is a target or is a terrorist.
Thank you, Anissa.
What did this show us about what we are good at as a crew?
Working together, because we often argue a lot.
Today, we did an activity that was really designed to get them thinking about how they're gonna support each other. I think that reiterating the idea that we're in this together, I think it's hard to find the time, but doing some team building exercises at the beginning of the year and revisiting them can really help illustrate that point.
In a belonging classroom, they have a community that may meet in classroom meetings to problem solve together, to read stories together, to tell successes and accomplishments or important events together. They celebrate like families do, things that each other have done or have experienced.
Let's talk about what we admire about some of our friends.
I admire Jazara because she is so compassionate.
And when we're talking about being compassionate and being supportive of one another, it's to build that deeper connection for everyone, just to feel like this is their school family, this is somewhere they're loved, they're nurtured, they're taken care of, they're valued.
Thank you for speaking.
The community becomes a place where you can bring your emotions, your fears, your needs. You can be honest about what's going on and know that there will be acceptance, support, and love that's available to carry you through.
We all can work together and we all can try to strategize together and create a better pathway for others to be successful. And we can make it fun.
They're working together. They take care of each other, not just personally, but academically.
We're always pushing each other.
All right. When we talk about trauma-informed care, one of the main pillars of making sure that we are being trauma sensitive in our classrooms is creating a sense of belonging. So all of this fits together, right? All of this fits together. All right, we do not have time to go into another breakout room right now, but I would encourage you to please add to your action plan of the tier 1 strategies that we talked about today. What do you want to try first? Remembering that we want to do the highest impact and the easiest to implement so that we can get the ball rolling and see some results as quickly as possible, right? None of this is a magic wand, but could you take your PBIS acknowledgements and attach it to not perfect attendance, but improved attendance or 92%, or pick your threshold and then maybe bump it up a little bit each month so that way to encourage kids to be in class more often. Are there things that you could provide at school to help meet some of those basic needs for kiddos so that they don't have to worry about, I don't have clean clothes today, I don't have my uniform washed, whatever that is. Talk about it with your team, add it to your action plan, come next time ready to share your action plan out with a small group again. We'll start with a breakout room again. And if there are no questions, or if there are questions, let's please ask them. But before you leave, if you could take a minute to please fill out our next session is November the 20th. We'll talk about tier 2 strategies. And then December 18th is day 4. We'll talk about tier 3 strategies. Okay. Questions? And at the same time, if you want to use the QR code or the link to fill out the evaluation, I would really appreciate it. We always want to make these the best they can be while still being respectful of the amount of time that you do and do not have to spend with us during the day. But I appreciate you giving me the last hour and 15 minutes of your day. Questions that I can answer.